Okay, you are live.
This is February 17th, and it's now 7 o'clock, and this is a regular meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Orleans, and it's being called to order. Present are myself, Michael P. Marnick, who is the chair of the Zoning Board, also George Wall, Lynn Eckholt, Gerald Mulligan, and Bruce Tom, members. Also in attendance is Stacy Faber, the board secretary, and the building commissioner of the town, Thomas Evers. There are two items on the agenda. I think that everyone, to bring, the first item is the application of Penrose relating to West Road that was continued from February, it was January 20th, excuse me. And Mr. Singer, representing Penrose, I think everyone knows, has requested a postponement of the hearing. And he's done it in writing until March 17th. So we'll have to act on that. I can report that since the last meeting, I thought it would be best to canvass all the appropriate town agencies. So through Stacy Faber, we sent a memorandum to all the agencies, even those which had already provided some input. And we received some responses. When we when we take up that application again on March 17th, we'll assemble all of those responses. So everyone will have what we needed to have. Let the record reflect that Emily Van Giesen, the clerk of the board, is also present. Nice to see you again, Emily. The only item, therefore, that is on the agenda is that case number 2149, and I owe you, Stacy, an apology because I found the that scanned material on the website included not only the West Street application, but also the one we're going to hear tonight. It was all together. It was a long, humongously long. I didn't realize that 2149 was at the end. I thought I was missing it. So we haven't. It's fine.
Good.
We have a quorum of 5 members of the board. Mr. Cole has communicated with me and requested he is excused. So why don't we proceed with case number 2149, represented by Mr. Delory. This is for a special permit. Has any member of the board had any communication with the applicant or any of the applicant's agents, which ought to be disclosed to the public or would otherwise constitute a conflict of interest? There's no positive response. Therefore, I declare that the board is impartial and indifferent. Can you proceed, Mr. Delory?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. I'm Greg Delory, representing Kevin Doherty and Marsha Allen, the owners of 4 Duck Pond Lane. The owners are seeking a special permit per section 164 44 to alter a deck system on the pond side of their house. The deck is an existing non-conforming structure. It's within 1.5 times the building height to the edge of a wetland. That's per section 164.21C. The proposed alteration is to remove the existing 600 square foot of deck and replace it with 348 square feet of new deck and a 190 square foot 3-season enclosed porch with a roof. The total proposed square footage is 585 square feet for a net increase in decrease in square footage of 15 square feet, including the stairs and landing. This is shown on my sheet A1 that I submitted. The reconstructed deck and porch do not extend any further towards the edge of the wetland than the original construction. The existing building at its highest point facing the edge of the wetland is 30 feet high. The distance from the deck system to the edge of the wetland is 31 feet as shown on the site plan provided. The distance from the new 3-season porch from the edge of the wetland is 40 feet. Using the 1.5 times building height, the distance required to build without a special permit would be 45 feet between the structure and the edge of the wetland. So that's basically why we're here. And I wasn't sure whether the ordinance requirement was to take the dimension from the nearest point of any structure that was associated with a change or from where the actual change was taking place. So whereas the 31 foot distance, which shown on the site plan, is the deck system with the closest to the wetland, the actual 3-season porch with a roof, which is what is triggering the special permit, is 40 feet. So either way, it's not enough. So I'm fine with whatever you decide. Just to go on, the house was built in 1983. The lot is 46,209 square feet. The proposed footprint will not expand the original footprint. The lot coverage will continue to stay well below the required average. The project is suitable for the site. The project is not proposing change of use. There will be no impact on traffic and safety. The project is at the end of a private driveway. No increased activity is anticipated. The neighborhood visual character will not be adversely impacted. The project has been approved by CONSCOM, Mass DEP file number 542518, where the visual at the CONSCOM hearing, the visual aspect, including views, was extensively discussed. The proposed construction is in the Cape Cod style, matching the house. Colors and materials will be cedar shingles and white trim. Natural wood structural elements are replacing the bright red deck system. The sewerage and drainage are adequate. The house has a compliant Title V septic system, and the pond-facing gutter downspouts will be directed into a dry well system as part of the proposed project. The proposed project does not require additional utilities or public services. No intensity of use is proposed. The project will not cause any additional noise and litter. Likewise, no intensity of use is proposed. There will be no adverse impact on groundwater quality. As previously noted, all pondside captured rainwater will be directed to dry wells, and the yard and all pervious planting is all pervious planting, and there's no hardscape on that side of the house. There was no opposition from neighbors or any member of the public at the CONSCOM hearings. And included in the application materials, assuming that everybody was able to get application materials. I don't know how you're doing it now with the restrictions on town hall, but if you got the application materials, there was a photograph with a clear plastic overlay, and the clear plastic overlay had a drawing on it. So that the purpose of that was, if you put a piece of blank white paper in between the clear plastic and the photograph, you can see the difference between what the house looks like now and what the proposed changes are going to look like in terms of their location and massing and et cetera. So it's kind of a kinetic article. It moves.
Well, now, I've been on the board for quite a few years. George Warr has a long experience with the board too, and I've always wanted to see an overlay, Mr. Blue, and you're the first architect or engineer who's provided an overlay.
Now I got the same comment from CONSCOM, and they voted me into the CONSCOM Hall of Fame right on the spot. It's a true story.
Do you have any other comments, Mr. Valori?
Well, just to kind of back up what I said earlier, the lot size is 46,209 square feet, and existing building coverage is 2,477 square feet, which is a 5.3%. So, and it's not changing from the existing building coverage. So we're well under that requirement.
I think it's the 31-foot distance that applies myself. I don't know what the other, any of my colleagues think. Have you been favored with the recently filed remarks of Ms. Burkett, who is a neighbor?
No, I have not.
Ms. Burkett communicated with the board secretary, and then she also called me, and I spoke with her, and she wanted to submit some information to the board, and under the Mr. Glory, it's attached and has been, it's part of the application now, because it was attached yesterday or the day before, and the letter in her handwriting explains, and this has been circulated to the visible for information pertaining to for your consideration of this case. She submits a copy of the minutes from the Conservation Commission of December 15th, and it's a 3-page attachment, the second of which reflects the hearing regarding Duck Pond Lane. And I see we're able to, that it reflects your presence and your having discussed with Ms. Bruce and Mr. Janelle and Mr. Mergadesian, the considerations, and I'm really I don't know whether to read it so that you could address it. It's Ms. Burkett may be in attendance. She thought she would be in attendance at the meeting, but that when I spoke with her, didn't intend to speak. So I'm not really sure what her objection might have been. Has any change in the landscaping in result of the Conservation Commission hearing?
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you, Mr. Chairman, in terms of the, there's a little bit of garbling. Your last sentence was you weren't sure what her objection was?
Yeah, that, and the real question was whether any changes have been made regarding, say, landscaping since the hearing on December 15th to alleviate maybe concerns that were raised by members of the Conservation Commission or any neighbors.
Well, we had 3 hearings, and I believe that the December 15th, I'm looking for the file on the December 15th hearing. The first hearing was continued because we didn't have a mass DEP number yet.
Okay.
They were having all kinds of problems. The second hearing, the view from Brick Hill Road became an issue. And we decided that we would continue and come back with a couple of trees to be planted, which we did. So we submitted a plan with 2 black tupelos that were going to screen part of the new porch, and everybody seemed to like that, and they approved the project. Other than that, there's been no landscaping elements proposed. Plus, what the work is not going to involve, the work itself doesn't involve moving or any landscaping or disturbing any existing landscaping. We're going to use helical piles to hold up the deck, which means there's no excavation, there's no leavings, there's no stuff that has to be trucked away. And we did that purposefully because one of the neighbors, and it probably was this one, had a problem with something that was going on in that property in 2013. And it was all worked out with conservation at that time. And that's all I know. But if you want to read the letter, it's fine with me.
If the letter I already have read, it's the minute. I'm trying to, maybe my colleagues have a difficulty determining what the Conservation Commission was struggling with that Ms. Burkett wants us to also reconsider. That's what I don't understand that completely. And any other members of the board have any questions or clarification maybe of my concerns? I don't think I'm making myself that clear.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I'll jump in. I read the communication. I didn't understand the issue either, and I was looking to you for leadership here.
I read it. I read it also, and I had to read it twice because it was confusing. But what I took from it was people were worried about the view from across the, from Brick Hill Road, and they came. And what I didn't know until Mr. Delory said it, is they came back and proposed some extra trees to sort of screen the view of the new addition, and that seemed good, and the commission approved it. The note we had was clearly from the second commission meeting when they continued it, and not from the third one where the trees were proposed and then it was approved. So I think it was just screening the view of that new addition from Brick Hill Road. That's what I understood.
Mr. Delory, can you see the porch? You're looking for relief, particularly with respect to the porch. or the deck. Can you see that from Brick Hill Road?
The overlay photo is taken from Brick Hill Road. So the answer is yes.
Mr. Delory, how high is the deck from the land? It's not lying on it's called a deck, but it's elevated, right?
Yes, it's 9+ feet off the grade, which it's located over a walkout basement.
We have we've been facing this issue consistently now over the last several meetings, and we keep slicing those distinctions increasingly fine in all these meetings. We had a long discussion a few meetings back that a deck that is on the ground, that isn't elevated, presents not much of a challenge really in terms of being in violation of the setback requirement. Then we sort of had the idea that if it was elevated, if it was above the ground, or if it was a structure that had a greater weight, if you would, in our deliberations. Here we have both. Well, we have an elevated deck, and then we have a raised porch. The porch is 5 feet. It's a 45-foot setback. Is that right? And the porch is 40 feet, and the deck is 31 feet. Is that correct, Mr. Delory?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're looking at two different structures that present a different sight line, both of which are would need a waiver or special permit from the setback requirement. In our discussions, we had some vigorous discussions on this issue a month or so ago, and Mr. Waugh was very eloquent. I was maintaining one position, and Mr. Waugh was very eloquent in saying that my thinking was not correct. Upon my reflection, he has convinced me that we really can't be worried about precedent here. I thought about that a lot. This is the first case I think that brings that to bear. And the reason we can't think about precedent is because we have decisions that are all over the lot in terms of we had one, Mr. Chairman, in Meeting House Pond, where the setback was almost minimal because of the lot. The lot was very constraining. You remember that one? It was just a month or so ago. And if that was a precedent, then we can't enforce any kind of a setback. So Mr. Waugh has convinced me. His greater experience told out, and I'm now of his camp. But having said that, it's a raised deck. It's a tougher call than a flat deck.
Mr. Chair. Thank you. Our position is that the deck system was already there.
Yeah.
What we're putting back is the part of the deck portion we're putting back is nearly identical to what was there. If you see the photograph, you can see the deck system and how far it is off the ground, and there's a little bit of landing as the stair goes down. And what we're doing is changing what used to be a deck to a 3-season porch with a roof.
Is the present deck, how far from what's a setback on the present deck?
The same.
The same. So
Exactly the same.
You're not increasing the
No. And the square footage is a little bit less actually after we put back the deck portion and put the porch on.
Even with the porch, the square footage is less?
Yeah, it's a little bit less, just because there were some little little nooks and crannies of little deck extensions that were on the existing deck, which is you can't miss it. It's red on the photograph.
Yeah.
And we just cleaned it up, and we took off a few appendages and ended up with 15 square feet less than what the original deck was.
Let's suppose that the principal objection here is to the view from another area, say Brick Hill Road. Then the question would be the extent to which the new construction would differ from the existing structure. And if that change isn't substantially different, then I don't know whether that ought to be a consideration of this board.
Well, that's exactly what Conscom was dealing with. And they decided that not looking at a red deck, a bright red deck, looking at shingles and white trim and a gray rail system and a cable rail that you wouldn't be that aware of the construction with cable rail on for railings on a deck for the balusters, in this case horizontal balusters, was better actually than looking at the red deck construction. Plus we were removing an 8-foot sliding glass door on that wall adjacent that was where the porch is going to be now. And what you were seeing was a big sheet of glass, 8 feet by almost 7 feet on the front of the house. And some of the members thought that looking at the porch construction as drawn would be a better thing to look at than a big sheet of glass. So, I mean, there was all kinds of subjective opinions about this, but in the end, they liked this better than the red, or they didn't like it better. Some of them liked it better, but at the end of the day, it was fine to do what we wanted to do.
Mr. Chairman, I certainly did one walk down and saw the site and walked around it. And my simple conclusion was that what they were doing was an insignificant change that would actually make the location look better. And with the addition of 2 trees along the side, having driven, after the last case, I went back to the case we had to withdraw. And I went back to this one and drove around a couple of times. I can see no problem with what he's doing visibility wise, nor from the street. And in fact, I feel that the changes that were made as is shown by the overlay were improvements. So I personally would have absolutely, I can't come up with anything that I'm concerned about with respect to the application.
Are there any other members of the board wishing to ask or questions of Mr. Delory? No response. Then I'm.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the special permit.
Yeah, no, just a minute, Mr. Mulligan. I was wondering whether anyone else was present at this meeting wishing to address the board. Sarah?
Yeah, what do you need, Michael?
Yes, I'm looking for, I've just asked whether there's anyone else present at this meeting wishing to address the board on this application.
I've got 3 people out there. One's on a phone, so I don't know if they want to talk. If the other 2 people, if they want to talk, if they can use the raise the hand feature.
Good. If anyone raises their hand, can you let them in sequentially?
Yes, I can do that. Right now, nobody has raised their hand.
There's no request to address the board by anyone else present at the meeting. The only correspondence being that letter circulated to the board and part of the application from Ms. Burkett. Therefore, I will, unless there's any further questions of Mr. Delory, I will close this hearing for the taking of evidence and ask the sense of the board. Mr. Mulligan, did you have a motion now?
I'll move to grant the special permit, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Mr. Warren. Any discussion on the motion? I wanted to reaffirm what I said before, that if the problem or the concern was you, then the board would generally take that into consideration insofar as the effect on the neighborhood or the adjoining properties were one of the factors in granting a special permit. However, the board could make a finding, and as part of its decision, that the change is not of either includes the aspect of a portion of the applicant's property, or the change is relatively insignificant, benign, and therefore wouldn't arise to prohibit the granting of a special permit. So those are my remarks, and this could be embodied as a proper finding in the decision if the special permit is granted. Any other remarks by any members of the board? Very well, then. This being a virtual hearing, I will call a roll call vote. Mr. Marner, yes. Mr. Wall,
yes,
Mr. Eckholt,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes,
Ms. Van Giesen,
Yes.
and Mr. Cobb.
Yes,
Motion carries unanimously. I will write the decision granting the special permit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, board members.
Thank you. Is there any further business to come before the meeting?
I had a question for us that I didn't really know was whether it was appropriate or not. That had to do with two cases that we've heard that had court components to them. One was the intersection of Tonsit and Main Street, and the boat and the sign and the woodworking shop. And the last we'd heard that was quote unquote in breach, and I didn't know what had happened and if it was appropriate to inquire. And then the other was the case that I thought was very fascinating, where Mr. Evers had brought before us the suggestion that we not approve something because though it was in technical compliance, it looked and smelled like something else, an Airbnb. And though we supported him, we were ultimately overturned, if I have that correct. And we were told that we couldn't act unless we were notified of an actual breach. And I just found those, I just wanted to, if it was appropriate, make sure my understanding was correct.
As to this, Bruce, as to the second, we dealt with that last meeting or the meeting before at the request of counsel to the lawsuit and town council. At that point, we revised our decision to make it, to specifically state that the reason for our action was that the application to invalidate Mr. Evers' decision was premature. That is to say, the building permit was properly issued, but the eventual use might fall afoul of the zoning bylaw. But we'd have to wait to see what the landowner did with the property. But the building permit itself was okay. So we revised that, and I understood through representation by counsel that case was going to be dismissed. So that had taken out of the Superior Court.
Right.
In the first case, that long and relatively stormy dispute between the landowner at the corner of Ponset and Main and this zoning board is still pending. I can't really state without taking a look at the file the last flurry. I think we considered that sometime last year. But that suit is still open.
My recollection was that we had said it is in breach and whatever happens next is in the hands of the building commissioner.
Well, I'm going to jump in because I do remember the vote was 4-2. And Bruce, you voted no along with me. But the reason I think we voted no, that was because the wording of the letter on the violation did not contain the proper legal citations. And counsel for the owner of Atlantic Workshop had a precedent that said, it'd be tossed out of court if it didn't have the proper citations. So we voted not to, and this is my words, might not be technically correct, but we voted not to go ahead with the, assessing the violation, but the letter could have been reworked with the proper citations and reissued. And I think you're asking, was it ever reissued?
I'll accept that. That was helpful. Thank you.
It has not been reissued. I'm still awaiting advice on town council.
But
That satisfies my curiosity.
it's hard to forget about that dispute because everyone, that's a visible intersection. I think of it. Any further business to come before the meeting?
I'll move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Mulligan. Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous by acclamation, Mr. Thank you for your attendance and support.
And we will be meeting, Michael, on next week for our special meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. That's great.
okay.
Tom, did you have a?
I'm just saying goodnight.
Maybe, very well.